So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We're excited to kick off this webinar, Break Free from One-Size-Fits-All Reporting. Now, reporting is one of the most essential and often one of the most frustrating parts of managing projects, portfolios, and teams. Now, whether you're a PMO leader, a finance partner, a resource planner, or a team lead, you've probably felt the pain of trying to get meaningful, actionable insights out of systems that weren't necessarily built with your specific needs in mind. See, the reality is not all stakeholders consume information the same way. And that's where Tempo comes in. Our suite of Atlassian Marketplace apps is modular, meaning each product serves its own set of use cases, but together they deliver flexible real-time reporting that fits the way you work. Brief agenda, we'll be talking about the reporting problem in general, like I mentioned in the opening. Talk about some specific challenges that arise when trying to report the same way to a whole bunch of different stakeholders. Talk about why Tempo is a good solution to these challenges. Talking about the different types of apps that we have within the Tempo portfolio that solve the reporting challenge, the reporting problem. My colleague, Robbie, will be given a live demo, and then we'll have some live Q&A toward the end. And so to introduce myself, my name is Chappy. I'm one of the senior product marketing managers here at Tempo, and with me is Robbie, one of our solutions engineers who'll be giving a live demo. Now, we want to know what is the biggest challenge that you're facing when it comes to reporting within your organization today. And then also, what tools are you currently using to build reports from Jira data? Whether you're using built-in dashboards within Jira, you're using one of our products, you're using a third party such as Power BI or Tableau, the always popular Excel or Google Sheets, or nothing formal yet. Okay, I'm going to end the poll and I'm going to share results. All right, looks like it kind of runs the gamut as far as what the big challenges are that you're facing as far as reporting. Customizing reports, good. Pulling data from multiple Jira projects, proving this is great stuff. All right, and what are you using today? Oh, wow, I see 62% of you using one of our products. That's great. We're hoping that we can give you some more knowledge about what else is in our portfolio that can help solve other use cases. So thank you so much. We will share this data as well in the follow-up email within the next few days. So let's start with the reality we've all faced. As the title of this webinar implies, reporting isn't one size fits all. Teams and stakeholders don't consume information the same way. And as your organization grows, more and more teams will consume information differently. Some examples include the CEO wanting high-level visuals in a slide deck, or finance wanting structured data in Excel, or project managers wanting dashboards, or even your developers. They might not want to see reports at all, but they want minimal disruption. The truth is, internal teams and stakeholders consume information in vastly different formats, and this makes reporting one of the hardest things to get right across an organization. Now, when the reporting format doesn't match the audience's expectations, the result isn't just annoyance, it's inefficiency. That causes you to lose clarity, alignment, and trust. Execs feel out of touch, finance teams question data reliability, and teams disengage. The consequence? Slower decisions, missed deadlines, and duplicated effort trying to make sense of the numbers. Sometimes we forget that we're not just reporting data, we're building confidence, or unfortunately, in some cases, eroding it. So this is where Tempo's modular approach shines. Tempo's apps work together or alone to meet a wide range of reporting needs. Whether you're using Timesheets, Capacity Planner, Structure, or Financial Manager, Tempo gives you reporting options. Options that could be tailored to your targeted stakeholders. Custom charts let you build real-time dashboards that are purpose-built for different audiences, right inside Jira. And BI connectors take it one step further, pushing your Jira data into the BI tools your finance, strategy, and operations teams already use. It's not about forcing everyone into one format. It's about meeting them where they are. Now, before we get into the demo, let's take a little bit of a closer look at how each Tempo Cloud product accomplishes this meeting and for whom. Now, Timesheets gives you a reliable, consistent foundation for reporting. Whether you're showing effort for compliance, billing, or internal optimization, the data comes from where the work happens, right in Jira. This means no disconnected spreadsheets and no guessing how time was spent. Now, Capacity Planner helps you move from reactive to proactive resource planning. But it's not just about scheduling. It's about surfacing whether your plan aligns with what teams can actually deliver. Reporting here helps you visualize overallocation, availability, and where trade-offs may be needed. Now you'll see on this slide, we have an example of the very popular plan versus actual report. So when you have timesheets and capacity planner working together, you have access to this report that shows how the plan matches up to what was actually executed. Now, Financial Manager connects time and cost. So your reporting isn't just about effort, it's about impact. This tool makes it easy to track costs, expenses, budgets, and revenues at the project or portfolio level. It's a game changer for finance and operations teams that need to tie investments to outcomes. Now, Structure brings structure, literally, to your reporting. It lets you organize Jira data in a hierarchy that matches how your team actually works. Whether you're rolling up to initiatives, tracking by team, or grouping by priority, the reporting follows your framework and not the other way around. Gantt charts for Structure gives you time-based visibility. You can surface dependencies, risks, and progress against plan, all in a visual format stakeholders understand. It's perfect for status reporting, forecasting, and cross-team alignment at scale. Custom Charts turns Jira data into meaningful, flexible visuals. It's easy to build charts that match how your teams want to see progress and how your execs want to measure success. And unlike generic dashboards, you're not locked into one layout or data source. And last but not least, BI connectors let you push Jira data into enterprise analytics platforms like Power BI, Tableau, and BigQuery. If your org already has a BI practice, this means Tempo data is ready to be sliced, filtered, and explored however they need, and it keeps everything live and connected. Now I've given you the what and the why. Let's get into the how. I'm going to turn the presentation over to Robbie to show you how the Tempo platform and its individual parts help you break free from one-size-fits-all reporting. And take it away, Robbie.
All right, thanks, Chappy. I appreciate it. Let me go ahead and steal my screen share here. I'm going to replace that and get that pulled up. So yeah, as Chappy mentioned a little bit earlier, my name is Robbie, and I'm a solutions engineer here at Tempo. The one thing that I love about what I do is being able to go through, each of the different parts of our solution and really speak to, who would find the reporting from this most valuable. The reason I pull up this one slide that I quite frequently use is just to kind of give you an idea of sort of the breadth of the types of offerings, different types of modules that Tempo offers. And it really makes it easy for folks to get started with Tempo, grow within Tempo, and really make sure that, all of that is just seamlessly integrated. All those different parts of it really do feed the other. It sounds kind of weird to say it, but what I'd like to do is kind of work through this sort of cascade of data, from the top level planning with things like Structure, where you're able to see all those different hierarchies, see those roll ups, be able to kind of, visualize all of that by time, look at things like capacity. And Structure is kind of a standout in this, in this presentation, because Structure is one of those modules, one of those apps that is by itself essentially a great reporting tool. So we'll just kind of jump right into that, and then we'll talk about how Capacity Planner, Timesheets all sort of bring their own data and how we can visualize all of that across the board. We'll definitely, of course, spend some time talking about Financial Manager, which is another great app that really pulls all that data together with costing and billing and allows you to kind of visualize all of that as well. And we'll definitely spend some time on custom charts and BI connectors for folks who live, perhaps not, deep in Jira, but they do need to see that data either outside with a BI connector or inside their dashboard with custom charts. So I know that a lot of folks that may be on this call today might use something like Structure. So we'll kind of start at that level. One of the things that we hear pretty frequently from folks who are using, maybe current native Jira applications or offerings is that they kind of struggle being able to report with a lot of flexibility. So one thing that Structure really does bring to the table very well is that flexibility and visualizations. So let's say, for example, we need to see, a high level report of the themes or initiatives, maybe those high level things that need to get done, but we don't necessarily necessarily know what needs to happen to get those high level things done. And that's really where the hierarchies within structure come into play. The nice thing about those hierarchies is that you can, if you're one of those organizations, very commonly that we hear that doesn't necessarily use Jira's hierarchies the way that perhaps Jira or Atlassian intended for them to be used, that's when structure comes into play. And again, it's all about that visualizing things that you might need to see and what rolls into them. So something like a high level view like this, where we're looking and starting off at themes, perhaps we need to take that sort of that art of the planning and turn it more into the science of the planning and being able to report on the things that are underneath it. So again, we've got this high level view, and if we could snap to an expanded view where we could see not only those high level things, but what goes into them, what is actually rolled up into those high level themes, or what does an epic look like, what are the different stories, the different tasks that go into it. We can use this really in any way that we want to, so many different views that we can take on. I've got some things up here at the top, different columns that are sort of basic to perhaps what someone might need to see. But again, the views are very much interchangeable. You can create different column level views, different types of visualizations, use formula fields if you need to, import things into structure if you need to, and be able to toggle between different views. So if you just need a more simplified view, that is available. Things like, being able to see the different statuses of the different items. You'll notice in here too that we've got a couple different columns here for tempo log time and tempo plan time. And that's another one of those things that when we talk about integration between the different tempo offerings, being able to pull that data from time that's been logged or time that's been planned on certain tasks or high level issues, themes, initiatives, whatever that might be, we could see all of that within structure really easily. So again, structure is great for visualizing this kind of information in any way that you need to. So it's in a way, it's sort of its own reporting tool. We do get a lot of good information in it. But in addition to this sort of, I don't want to call it a spreadsheet layout, but that hierarchical layout, you can also add in Structure's Gantt add-on, which is over here on the side on the right. That takes all of that data that you've got on the left here, all that sort of that hierarchy, the things that you need to get done, and lets you report on, when are they going to get done? Is there sort of a move from the baseline of what we'd originally planned? Are there any dependencies or scheduling conflicts that we need to know about within structure? So this gives us a sort of a live view directly into what's going on in Jira. Again, this is living in Jira itself, so we don't have to go too far to get it. But we're able to see things like crazy dependencies that we might have had set up within Jira that might not be as noticeable if we were looking at just the issue itself. So it gives us all of that sort of visualization here. We can see exactly how we want those things stacked up and how they want to be worked on. Other ways that folks will use structure to report on things is, let's say they need a breakdown by sprint, by different teams, different things like that that they might need to view. So instead of that hierarchical view, maybe we have a different group to view. So something like looking at this by team, by sprint, or sprint by squad, or however you want to have that visualized. We could see all the different work that needs to go into it, what people might be working on as a team, and be able to kind of drill down into that directly within structure. Cool part about this is that, with a lot of reporting, sometimes it's really hard to get to the actual data. So let's say I'm sitting here looking at, that high level view in a structure, and maybe I want to drill down a little bit more into it. Maybe find out a little bit more about the individual items that are in there. You could just click on that. It'll pull up that Jira issue, whatever it is, directly within your structure so that you're able to visualize that. And the nice thing about this is that it allows you to see that without having to switch screens or go into something else. You're able to pull that up very easily. Another thing that I do like to mention too, again, with that integration for additional data, additional reporting, Structure also has a resource usage view too, which also kind of lines all of that up together. So again, we've got our data, the things that we need to get done. We've got our time frame as far as when we're having things planned, when we want things to get done. But then as part of that, we might need to be able to see the resources. Who do we actually have available to do that? And this resource reporting down here at the bottom shows either by team or by the individuals on that team, or you can also just have it be, just regular resources. But we're taking the data from Tempo's capacity planner and showing that lined up with our Gantt chart up at the top so that we understand, not only who do we have that might be available, but then also gives us a visualization of someone who might be over planned, someone who's way above their capacity for a specific time period. And again, a lot of that data is coming directly from our Tempo capacity planner, which we'll get to in just a second. So just to kind of sum up down here at the bottom of structure, we've got a great way to visualize all that work that needs to be done, when it actually should be completed or when we want it to be completed, who is actually available, and then what team they're on, and then any capacity information down at the bottom. So again, structure is sort of its own method of reporting. And if that's something that you're using today, you may be very familiar with it. But there are a lot of different things and different ways that you could change those visualizations directly within structure. All right, so now that we've kind of talked about those high-level planning and how we're reporting on all of that, let's talk about sort of that, I don't say the hard part, but the actual capacity planning where you're going through and actually setting by team or by resource to actually show when they have available to do this work. And again, capacity planner is a fantastic way to look at all of that data. We won't necessarily get into the functionality of the capacity planner, but just to show that there is good data that can come out of this, especially when we're combining this with time that's actually been logged. Now, I know there's a lot of folks out there who might say, for example, we don't want to have to log time. You don't necessarily have to in order to use Capacity Planner. You're going to get some great data if you use Capacity Planner together with timesheets. You're going to get, as Chappy mentioned a little bit earlier, that plan versus actual report where you can see what you intended to do, and then you can see what folks actually worked on as a team. But if you're just doing the planning side of things and you just want to be able to see this at a team level view or a resource level view, there's some great visualization in here depending on how they're actually doing their work. So if we have, for example, our average Joe's team here, we've got our different members down here at the bottom that, for example, might need to see a breakdown by something like sprint or by month or by week, however they're doing their iterations. We're able to visualize the utilization rate, the total capacity, individual allocations, things that people are working on versus the high level plans for the team. But there's a lot of good visualization available and reporting available directly within Capacity Planner. Now, for folks who are looking more for that, that Excel spreadsheet or that, Google Sheets type look, we do have reporting that is available about capacity planning. So if we were to dig into, for example, our, full size capacity plan by team, we can come in here and just run our report. We can see our team capacity view. And it's going to take all that information that we've got on the planning side and allow us to pull all that into a single report. So once we've got that pulled up, we're going to kind of take a look at that in just a second. But while we're talking about that, we can also see, for example, you've got your plan time and you've got your actual time, and you want to be able to kind of hash all of that out by team, by project, by user if you need to, just to kind of see where all that work is happening and how people are or teams are kind of performing versus what's been planned. In this case, I've got this plan versus actual report broken down by project. So I've got my Android Scrum project here. And then I've also got all of my teams that might have been doing work on that or had time planned on it. So if we've got our plan time versus actual time, it gives us an idea as we sort of move through months or time periods that we're trying to report on to be able to see exactly what's been done and how that's sort of, progressed over time. So we're able to see on past sprints or past timeframes, past months or quarters, what did we plan? What did we actually do? And then what could we possibly expect as far as performance or capacity for those teams going forward? So this again, something like a tempo capacity report is definitely great when it's paired with those timesheet reports. But if I get into something like again, we'll talk about tempo timesheets here. When we get into the actual time logging, A lot of folks wonder, not everyone in my organization is logging time within Jira, within Tempo. Perhaps you have folks that don't work necessarily in the Atlassian environment, or they're not necessarily getting into Jira to do that. And you might need to pull that timesheet data out into a different system. Some folks might use Workday, or some people might use SAP. So when you're logging time within timesheets, you do get good, accurate data based upon exactly what people are logging their time on. You can break that data down within the actual tempo reports into different things like, what kind of account is this being logged on within timesheets? What epic, or what story underneath that, or what kind of task was actually done and worked on. And you can see that breakdown in a lot of different ways natively within Tempo, in things like log time reports. This one's broken out into CapEx versus OpEx time logs. So you can see all that information and who's actually logged time and how that rolls up to that higher level epic, or what actually falls within that account. And again, just to kind of top that off, you can always export things like time logs, like capacity plans into other systems if you need to have an overall reporting for your finance folks. But again, you can get a lot of good visualization directly within Tempo when it comes to that log time. So, let's say we've got our planned time and we've got our actuals. What can we do with that data if we simply add cost rates or billing rates to that time, or that time that's been planned based on the people that are actually doing that work or who have been planned to? That's where Tempo's financial manager really comes into play. So if we go into something like our project here, this is what we would call our under budget example. Tempo's financial manager is great for visualizing either by hours. So if you wanted to see a visualization of like a budgeted amount of hours that you have on a project, or a specific scope that you're looking at, you can do all of that within Financial Manager. If you have costing, or if you have expenses, things like that, that you want to attach to that, you can also visualize that within Financial Manager. So being able to pull all that information together into one great overview, and then be able to drill down a little bit further on different parts. So this is a great overview because we've got our orange budget milestones so that we can see exactly where we're expected to be for that particular time frame. We'd have our labor here in dark blue. Any recurring or one-time expenses may show up in our light blue here. And then of course we've got, if there's any sort of scope change or revenue that's being generated, we'll be able to see that on this report as well. So over here on this overview, we've also got our ability to break it down, kind of like what we saw before, between CapEx and OpEx by different types of accounts that we might have set up in here. So if we have folks who are, logging their time with Tempo timesheets, you're able to add in a lot of additional metadata when you log that time. Things like accounts for, reporting CapEx or OpEx, billable, non-billable. Maybe it's an internal account for things like training or group meetings, things like that, that you want to be able to track. You could see all of that visualized in here. Now, what are we reporting on in here, I guess, is the real question. So that's when we could switch over to our scope up here at the top. So this shows it less from an overview standpoint, and more of, what's the actual work that's being done? What's included in this particular project? And that's when we can come down and see if there's any time that's been spent, or anything that's been logged to specific tasks, different epics, as we kind of break them down and be able to see all of that data in there. Other folks may have questions about, the team itself. For this particular scope and this project that we have folks that are working on, what is our labor cost? Is there any revenue that's being generated? I do kind of want to say out loud that when we're talking about financial manager here, this is all demo data, so this is not real. Didn't want to kind of put that disclaimer out there. But we can see a breakdown here by roles, by individual team members, what their cost and time spent is on this particular project, and be able to see that breakdown within Financial Manager. This kind of reporting is generally only available to folks that have the proper permissions, of course, to Financial Manager to be able to see this kind of data. This is something that can be, shared if needed, and then also kept internally if that need arises. So just because we're showing this kind of information on here does not mean that everyone has access to this. This is, again, speaking directly to the persona of the kind of person who would need to see this kind of data for a specific project. This also covers things like expenses. So if that project or whatever you're working on, that scope for this particular project may include things like recurring software licenses, CRM licenses, like in our case, things like, if you have infrastructure that you need to build out or equipment that's needed for that project, those kinds of expenses can show in here and also reflect within that overview overall. So again, financial manager, sort of like structure in that it is by itself a reporting tool. We're taking all that great data either from Jira in the case of structure or from tempo planned versus actual time and putting that into financial manager. You get a lot of really good data directly within that tempo app. So as we've kind of talked through structure, capacity planner, timesheets, and financial manager, those are, again, that sort of native tempo reporting that's available in there. But we definitely want to talk about, what are other ways that we can visualize that data? What about for folks that don't necessarily live within, Jira issues? They're not digging into those reports within Tempo, but they still need to have that visualized in a couple of different ways. There's, I guess we'll say that there are a couple different solutions there. We could start with custom charts, and we'll talk about that. Custom charts is fantastic for dashboarding. Lots of different folks need to see different visualizations on their dashboard. As Chappy was kind of talking a little bit earlier about, if we've got folks who are developers who just, again, don't care about reporting, but might have, the need to see something in there, what is my next thing that I'm supposed to be working on? How's my team doing? They may care about that. And that might be something that needs to be at a dashboard. But for a lot of folks who are doing that high level reporting, if you need to be able to see all of that within Jira, things like, again, plan versus actual without needing to run a report, the time that's actually being spent by team on different epics. These are all custom made charts that you can very easily set up and to sort of adjust to however you want to visualize them. Lots of different types of visualizations available if you just need something high level, or if you need to get into something a little bit more, I don't use the term spreadsheet like, where you could actually have a list type report that's available for these kinds of things as well. I did want to mention while we're in this dashboard that there are visualizations in dashboarding for things like structure. So structure is a gadget that you can also use within the dashboard. The nice thing about this is that folks that are viewing this don't necessarily have permissions to make changes. It's just about the visualization and being able to see it. But you can build all kinds of different reports within custom charts, and it combines both the tempo data and then any Jira fields, Jira data, custom fields that you might have set up, being able to visualize those in these high level reports. A really cool thing that I do want to mention is our custom chart simple search. So there are sometimes we'll see folks who want to have custom charts that are easily adjustable. So let's say you want to be able to visualize on one project, but you want that exact same report maybe for a different scope or a different project. If you tie something like a custom chart gadget to a simple search as sort of the as sort of the query that you're using to run that report, you can tie that to it. So if you were to change, like for example, I want to include different projects or focus on a specific team within custom charts, or just show me the things that are related to a specific status, you can make that change in one place in your simple search. And then any gadgets that are on your dashboard will then sort of adjust to whatever that new scope, that new query is. So you can essentially change the scope and have it rerun all of the reports for that scope. Or you can have ones that are simply independent. Maybe they're based upon a structure view that you have set up or a specific JQL query that you're using for that report. Lots of different ways that you can adjust those charts based on what your persona or what your role, what you actually need to see for the work that you're doing. So custom charts is a great option, very easy to get started with, allows you to kind of walk through and visualize the things in a lot of different ways. I did also want to touch very heavily on our BI connectors. So again, we talk about that one size fits all reporting, and that is when we try to get away from that and we want to make sure that people can see things the way that they need to, BI connectors are fantastic for that. We have a lot of different types of reporting that are available within Tempo, from structure itself to capacity overviews for teams, to log time, plan versus actual, being able to see things in Financial Manager. But then again, not everyone lives within Jira. You may have folks that are not even, get scared when they hear that they have to log into Jira to check a report or something like that. BI connectors are great for taking all of that data, both from Tempo and also from Jira, and taking all that data and allowing you to pull that easily into Power BI or Tableau, being able to kind of put all of that in one place. So you kind of see an example of one here within our dashboard. Of course, these are all dashboardable type reports. So if you have Power BI or you have Tableau and you wanted to visualize that within, a dashboard, either within Jira or within Confluence, if you're using that, you're able to kind of put that there. Or if you have an external system that you run or share your BI reports through, you're able to visualize that there as well. This is kind of a basic report that shows the information that we saw back in Financial Manager. But again, if the person does not have access to Financial Manager, they just need to be able to see the reporting for it. This is a great way to kind of share that with them if they need to see it. The nice thing about that Power BI connector, which also connects, we also have a Tableau connector, BigQuery connector, lots of different connectors that are available within this environment. But the nice thing about this is that the amount of templates that are available already. You may have folks that are working in Power BI that have reports just the way that they like them, and they want to be able to pull that Tempo and Jira data into them. Perfectly fine if that's your preferred visualization. But there's a lot of folks that kind of start off from that almost blank slate, and they're like, I have to build a report from scratch. That could be kind of painful sometimes. So we have all of these Power BI connector templates in this particular example. Things like project dashboards, release reporting, overall helicopter views if you need to see those. If you're using, using this in an ITSM capacity, so like Jira Service Management, and you need a dashboard for that, that's also pre-built in here. So it's very easy to come in, create that data source connection, and then be able to visualize that information anywhere that you need to. So as we kind of go through here too, we definitely wanted to talk about, what you can do with all this data. And I think we've covered quite a bit of it, from, again, structure visualizations to the capacity planner reporting, timesheets, for making sure that you're collecting all that data that you might need to report for finance. Financial Manager, again, taking advantage of all of that planning data and timesheets data, attaching costs and making sure that you get that really good view and very granular view of where your time and money is going on that particular report. And then being able to visualize things within custom charts, and then being able to take things outside of that with BI connectors. If this sounds kind of strange to say, but again, if anything in here is, it doesn't seem like it would fill the bill, we do also have a very robust API that's available. So if you have an external system that, you need to pull all that data out, just about every aspect of these different Tempo apps and modules and the data that we're, creating as you use it, can be exported into other systems as well. So if you have a preference as far as what you're doing with that data, or if you need to export that into, some sort of data lake or something to that effect, you're able to do that using that Tempo API. So we've talked about quite a bit here today, but what I do want to basically say is, before I turn it back over to Chappy, thank you all for listening. I'm going to be on here to answer any questions, but at this point, Chappy, I think I'm going to turn it right back over to you, sir.
All right. Well, thank you everyone again for joining. Before we get into the Q&A section, I have one more poll that I would like to launch. And all right. So, from what you've seen today, we'd just like to know which ones you'd like to learn more about. And also if you're interested in seeing a more tailored demo and learning more about how these tools work together in your Jira instance. But before we get into the Q&A, like to just remind everyone that all of our apps right now are free to use, free to trial for 30 days, and you can find them all on the Atlassian marketplace. This is Tempo Software's Elastic Marketplace page that has all of our apps located on it, all the apps that you saw today, plus a lot more that are on there as well. And to start a free trial, you navigate to this page. You click the try free button when drawing a listing. If you're a Jira admin, you follow the prompts to install on your instance. If you're not a Jira admin, you click the request app button and you'll send a message to your Jira admin with why you feel that this app would be great for your instance and for your organization. And now we'll get into some Q&A. And I saw some good questions. Robbie, you went over a lot of our apps today. Someone asked, what are some of the more popular examples of customers combining multiple Tempo apps for more complete reporting?
That's a great question. I think probably, and I kind of I got some pushback when I described Timesheets as our most popular app, but it certainly is the one that is out there the most. A lot of folks that work with us that are using Tempo timesheets, and maybe they're only using Tempo timesheets. They perhaps want to see that planned versus actual kind of reporting. So I would say our most popular use case when people are trying to combine those two, some different apps to get more complete reporting, timesheets and capacity planner. If you have timesheets and you want to see how folks that have log time and then compare it to what you actually want them to do, that's a great use for timesheets and capacity planner. Timesheets and financial manager can also be great if you're not even using capacity planner and you're using timesheets. Perhaps you want to see how as people log that time on different issues, or log towards different projects, initiatives, whatever it might be. Using financial manager with timesheets gives you a great readout of like, where are we, how are we stacking up against our budget. If you do include capacity planner in there, again, you get almost like that, you get that forecasting. So you could see, as you go through that overview that we talked about a little bit earlier, once you hit today's date, anything beyond that, it's taking that capacity planner information, things that you've assigned to people, and gives you that, sort of, readout of, how is that going to progress? What does my forecast look like if I keep on going the way that I'm planning? So I would say that those are probably the most popular. Last but not least, of course, we talked about sort of that basic structure layout, that listing with all the different hierarchies on there. When you add that structure Gantt add-on to the side, that's also probably, I would say that most people that are using structure are adding that Gantt on to be able to visualize that from a time standpoint. So being able to see all of that together with structure Gantt. So timesheets and planner together, timesheets and financial manager together is a great combination. And then structure with Gantt is also a really good one too.
Excellent. You mentioned financial manager in there. Someone asked, how does financial manager help with executive level reporting?
Okay, yes. And so there's a couple different ways that we could do that. So it is great for those like high level financial summaries. The nice thing about financial manager is that you can choose what the scope is for your reporting. So if you just want to see a financial manager, report, or turn a single epic into a project, or look at it from high level, this group of epics together, or if you have a structure view that you've built and those are the things that you care about in your role, and you want to just take that structure view and turn that into a financial manager report, it allows you to kind of see that at whatever level you want to see it. So it gives all of that sort of real time data as people log time, to be able to see exactly what they need to do as a decision maker. They can understand where the money is being spent, if their budgets are on track, and they, if you're using something like that BI connector, or a reporting through that financial manager, they don't even necessarily have to log into Jira to be able to see it. They can use that BI connector report to be able to visualize it. So it's all about that access and making sure that executives can get in there and see it without having to dig into Jira.
Excellent. Great. We have a question about timesheets. It says, hi, what reports are possible with timesheets alone? Do we have any documentation and sample reports that we could use to build reports required for our business purpose?
Yeah, so with within the timesheets, again, if you're only using timesheets, you get all of that data that you get when you're actually having folks log time. So if you are using timesheets and you have, for example, accounts that you have them choose, like capex versus opex or internal or whatever kind of logging that you want them to do, you could take that data, you can report on that, break that down by different groupings if you need to, sort it by account, sort it by person, by team. So there's a lot of good reporting that's available within that timesheets. But then keep in mind too that with custom charts or that BI connectors, whatever it might be, you're going to get that data outside of Tempo too. So we do have the ability to not only use the API, but then also report on that using custom charts. Or if you have a BI connector report that you're using to visualize that, you could do that too. So again, what we can report on is sort of beholden to the type of data that you're collecting when folks log time. So if you have any additional fields or anything like that that you're requiring or you want to be able to see in there, the data that you get out is as good as the data that you put in. So if you have a lot of different metadata that you're collecting during that time logging, you're going to get some really good granular reporting out of it. And we do
Yeah,
have documentation on that as well. We could share. Absolutely, we could send that over to you from those different standpoints, depending on how you want to report on it.
excellent. Yeah. Yeah, this a lot of timesheets reporting is kind of, reactive reporting, is reporting on, what's already been done. But there's a question here is I
Right.
want to move from more reactive reporting to more predictive or proactive planning and reporting. What's the best Tempo app to explore?
Well, if you're, I think we kind of talked about this on that first question, but I'll definitely reiterate it. Capacity Planner is going to help you with that. Cool thing about Capacity Planner is that if you're using, let's say you're doing your planning as in just basic Jira sprint planning. You've got your sprints listed in Jira, you've got your backlog there, and you're just kind of pulling those into sprints, assigning them to people, assigning estimates. We have a Jira sync that allows you to take that data and it'll just put that directly into Capacity Planner for you. Or if you're using Capacity Planner, then you could certainly plan out as far in advance as you want to. Capacity Planner also gives you if you're really looking for that proactive planning, you can also use generic resources within Planner. So let's say you have a team of, I don't know, 5 people, and you've got them all on that team, but you might need to add on a couple of additional folks in different roles to that team. You can create a generic resource on that team and plan on them, so you don't necessarily even know who that person is going to be when you're making these plans. And then you can really easily, with one click, kind of snap all of those plans to that actual user when they get assigned to that team or to that project. So it gives you the ability to kind of proactively plan, even if you don't have people in place to do that work at this point. So if you're planning quarters or months or quarters ahead and you don't necessarily know who's going to fill that role, Capacity Planner lets you put that into place, and that will give you additional reporting on that as well.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks, Robbie. Got
Mhm.
another question about custom charts. I think you may have touched on this, but it says, do I need a technical background to build dashboards in custom charts?
You know what? No, and I say that as someone who well, I do have a technical background, but I found that it is very easy to go through and set up a custom chart. The nice thing about it is that kind of like what we saw with BI connector. Like all the different templates that were in there. There are those within custom charts as well, suggested layouts, things like that. So honestly, it's a couple of simple drop downs, and it can be as complex as you want it to be. So if you just want to visualize one thing on one axis, one thing on another, or just build a pie chart or something like that, very easy to do that. All you're really doing is choosing what the scope of that report is going to be. So all you're really doing is saying, all right, I want to see this kind of report for this specific set of data, or this grouping of different projects all together, or this team or and that team together. So it's really just picking what you want to report on and then having it snap into a custom chart. And you can edit it or change it, customize it any way that you want to once that's been put in place. So really easy to do. And we find that a lot of folks are able to jump into it pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I've even found that I'm able to use it. So, and I have zero technical background, so it's great. Um, and on the same topic of dashboards, I get a question that says you showed the Tempo integrated dashboard. Where can I find it? We have a cloud license for Planner, Timesheets, and Financial Manager. Is it available there?
Yeah. So, okay. So the Tempo integrated dashboard, and just transparency, that's what we named our dashboard in Jira. So you can name it whatever you want. Our Tempo integrated dashboard is just one that we're using for the purposes of our presentation. It's essentially just a Jira dashboard. The way that you get those custom charts in there is when you're going to, I believe you can go to the marketplace and add custom charts to your environment. And then it will show up as an available gadget that you can add into your dashboard. So there's nothing particularly special about the Tempo integrated dashboard that I showed. It's just we use that to show our different custom charts that we've got built, be able to kind of put that BI connector in there, that report. So yes, it is available within, if you go to dashboards within Jira, and then you would simply add on custom charts as a gadget within there.
Thank you for that.
Mhm.
I kicked off this webinar talking about how there are different reports for different stakeholders. Someone asked a question: can I export or share Gantt charts for stakeholder presentations?
Well, there's nothing that stakeholders love more than Gantt charts, but you can certainly do that. Now, I think we might have seen it for a little bit there within custom charts. Again, when I was not necessarily custom charts, but in that dashboard. The If you want to be able to show it as a dashboard, you can. There is a structure and structured Gantt dashboard gadget that you can use. But yes, those charts can also be exported to PDF or into an image format if you want to, things like PNG, whatever it might be. And to be able to kind of put that into, if you're doing a PowerPoint presentation or something like that, and you want to be able to show that on the screen, you certainly can. But a lot of folks will use that dashboard methodology. But if you're doing it for a big presentation, a PDF or an image export is definitely available as well.
And on that same similar topic, I think you might have touched on this also, but I think it might be worth reiterating. It says, is there a way to bring team capacity data into structure?
Yes, yeah, there is. So a couple different ways, and I think we saw those when we were going through structure. I know we went through that fairly quickly, but we had a lot to cover today. But structure, yes, there is that. You may remember that 4-quadrant view where we could see the stuff that we're working on, the time frame over in Gantt, and then down at the bottom was a list of the people that we have that are available to work, and then what their capacity is based on how it lines up with that Gantt chart. So not only can you visualize it like that, but you can also add a column into your structure for tempo log time and tempo plan time so that you can get that information in there too. So capacity down at the bottom of structure in that resources view, and then any time that's been planned or logged can also show up in the structure itself too.
Thank you. I think we have time for a couple more. This one's also about structure, related to structure. Can I report on portfolio level metrics or milestones within structure?
You can definitely put, and I don't know if I visualize that in there, but you can set milestones in your structure based on specific time frames that you might have set up. Another thing on top of that, again, is that baseline capability within structure. So let's say you set yourself a milestone and something happens and that's got to move. That's not the point of milestones, but there you are. So let's say something needs to change with it. You could see visually on that Gantt chart where and how far that's moved along with anything that's underneath it. So when you set a baseline, you can kind of toggle back and forth between, here's what I plan to do, here's how it's actually fleshing out. You're able to kind of see all that information in there. When it comes to portfolio level metrics, that's really what structure does very well. So I think you probably saw when we first jumped into structure, there were a bunch of themes, like so those gray icons where we have those high level objectives or themes, initiatives, whatever level you may work at. and how all of the things that are under that roll up into that top level, that theme or that, that initiative that you've got up there. So yes, one of the things that structure does really well is roll up that information from sub items into that top level. And that's where you get that really good overall portfolio level metric layout in structure.
Okay, I think we have time for one more. In addition to cross-project visibility, I'd like to generate a comprehensive report showing the total time spent on the entire implementation project, not broken down by month, but as a cumulative view. What is the best way to configure such a report in Tempo to capture all relevant work across multiple Jira projects? Can I see this in structure?
You absolutely can. So that is another thing that structure is really good at. And I think we kind of talked about at the beginning how it is sort of in and of itself a reporting tool. When it all kind of boils down, we're visualizing all of that data that's within Jira, and you can pull that in any way that you want to into structure. So if you want to see that sort of overall report, you may not even have the Gantt over on the right hand side. You may just want to see all of that data, all those columns across all of your different themes and high level things that you're working on. You can add as many different columns as you really want to in there. We see people that have like crazy layouts with like tons of different columns in there that they might need to report on. Another cool part about that too is that you can, collapse as you need to. You can reorganize things if you need to, and that data can come from really anywhere within Jira. So if you wanted to have it filtered on like a JQL query, or if you wanted to have that based on, some other grouping that you have, you can pull all that in and report on that at a high level. So when it comes to structure, most of the time, my answer is yes, it could do that because we've seen that in action. And I'd love to get you a little bit more information about this after the call.
Excellent. Yeah, I've noted who asked that question, and we'll be able to follow up. Absolutely. Questions are still coming in. We got a few more minutes left. Here's one. Can I control who sees which reports or dashboards?
Yes, absolutely. And that is important. I know we've got so much data, and at what point do we want to make sure that we can kind of make that permissions based? So yes, in both custom charts and BI connectors, the visibility on that, it follows your existing Jira or Confluence permissions, so you could see and easily manage who's actually got access to various things, especially within the actual things like Capacity Planner or Timesheets. All of those are related to Jira permissions, and we do have very granular permissions that are native to Tempo as well. So if somebody doesn't need to be able to see a report, then you kind of go to that through that least permissions. What's the least amount of stuff or that they can actually view. So as you're in a role that you need to be able to see that and visualize it, you definitely can turn that on for folks that need to see it. And maybe some folks don't necessarily need to have access to reports, but absolutely, reports and dashboards both can be very much permissions based.
So thanks, Rob. And we have one more question. We have time for one more question. Then we'll wrap it up. Is the data shown in real time, or is there a delay?
So custom charts, it shows that real-time data right in Jira and Confluence. So if if you're making a change or something adjusts, it's designed to pull that data real-time into custom charts. BI connectors, it could get you pretty close to real-time, but it just kind of depends on how often you refresh your data in that tool. So there are things that you can adjust as far as how often that syncs, and will sort of publish that to the BI connector. So it's really however you have that set to refresh is going to be how often your BI connectors are connected, are synced. But custom charts is real-time data. And of course, that tempo data is going to be real time because it's directly within the Tempo environment. So financial manager, as people log time live, you're going to see that data. You may just, even just refresh the screen and you'll see all that new data that's in financial manager. So as close to real time as you can get for, I'm going to say, a vast majority of what we've got in Tempo.
Thank you very much, Robbie. And we're at time. Thank you so much for everyone who showed up. We really enjoyed having you all here. Just a reminder, all these apps are available on the Atlassian Marketplace. I put a link in the chat. And whatever questions we didn't get to through the webinar, we will follow up with everyone individually to make sure that those questions are answered. Thank you so much. Until next time, we'll see you later.